Good morning. It is February 6th, 5:33 in the morning. It is a Sunday. It's the end of the week, fellas. It's the end of the week. We got one more week coming up of I don't have any school. It's still on Chinese New Year, Vietnamese New Year break vacation. And so, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week yet. I've got a couple more side jobs I can do. But after that, I'm pretty free. So maybe fill it up with more memories, go out, do something. Yeah, this morning was pretty good. Woke up, felt good. I set my accelerometer. I talked about that yesterday on the vlog. But I set my accelerometer instead of the accelerometer. I've been using the microphone, so it can listen to when you're about to wake up, and then it'll chime in when it's time to wake up. It worked yesterday. But the one thing I had to sacrifice was I had to turn off my fan, because my fan makes a lot of noise at night. Normally I have got the fan on me, as well as we got the AC blowing in the bedroom. And we don't try to turn down the AC too low because it makes the room a little bit too cold for the wife. But in order to supplement that, I've got the fan on me, which points right into my direction at night, and we set it to stand still and just blow on me. But anyway, last night, you can run some tests on your sleeping app, and it'll tell you if your noise is too much, there's too much sound in your room that might interfere with the microphone hearing you sleep. So it knows when to wake you up. So I turned off the fan last night, and it was okay. Yeah, I slept well, and then I got the correct timing to wake me up on my phone. So I woke up nicely, woke up peacefully, and yeah, came down here, do my run this morning, feeling good. I've been thinking about just teaching in general and connecting with my students, and this came up because I was on a study yesterday about how to connect, and at the very ending part of the text, it talked about like we should learn how to change and adjust what we talk about to the level, the age, and the needs of our audience, and which involves you knowing what the needs and wants and the level of your audience is. So I was thinking about something, and an illustration came up in my head that I recently heard on a podcast. The podcast name is Think Fast. Oh man, Speak Fast, Think. Oh no, I'll link it in the description of the TED Talks, not TED Talks, the podcast I listen to. But anyway, it's come from the Stanford College of Business, and the host is one of the lecturers there. But anyway, he talks about knowing your audience and how you can connect with them. And he gave a really good example. He said, back in 2001, before there were any cell phones, before the iPhone came out, before, even before the big Google boom in 2003, where Google really took off, the internet was still in its infancy years as far as gaining a user base. And so he talks about in 2001, Apple comes out and they release something called the iPod. And for my student yesterday, my student wasn't even born yet. But anyway, that's besides the point. So he goes and talks about how the iPhone, you see me fiddling with this camera? There's a big drop right here, so I have to be careful when I'm talking. So he goes on to talk about 2001. The engineers of Apple got really, really excited, and they talked about this new device called the iPod will come out with 5 gigabytes of memory. And to anybody who knew anything about computers, that's a big deal. That was a very, very big deal, because you had hard drives, that were the size of textbooks when I was young. I remember buying a textbook size hard drive was 80 gigabytes. So so for a small little device to fit in the palm of your hand that had 5 gigabytes, it was a really, really big deal. And for many of you, I'm talking about 5 gigabytes and it's still going over your head, even though we're in 2022. But back then, even more so, the education level of storage space and gigabytes was very, very low. I can ask one of my students now today in 2022, and they can kind of have an idea of how much roughly 5 gigabytes is. But back then, when the engineers came out, they said it's got 5 gigabytes of storage space. That information went way over the majority of people's heads, especially the people who they were targeting to buy their new iPod. So Apple had to come up with a new slogan or a new way to present the same device, the same amount of storage, but instead of saying it has 5 gigabytes of storage, they said you can hold 1,000 songs in your pocket. And as soon as they launched that campaign, the sales of the iPod exploded. And the reason being is because people knew that having 1,000 songs in your pocket was unbelievable. As much as unbelievable as 5 gigabytes back then would have sounded, to the normal populace, people who heard that, they just didn't understand it. They didn't get it. And so that was his example of using information and looking at your audience in order to make a calculated way of presenting your information. And yeah, I remember that little iPod. I don't know if you remember the iPod. Did you have that iPod when you were growing up? Back in 2001. I had a friend, his name was Darren, and Darren had all the coolest tech. As soon as it came out, he had it. You know, he got the new Mac computers and the one with the different color backs. You remember that? There's like tangerine orange and teal blue. I think there was a purple. Yeah, there was these Macs with all different color back plates. But yeah, he had that. And any new game that came out, he got that. But anyway, he showed me one day the new iPod. I just was like, that's amazing. And the reason is back then, for those who are watching this don't know what an iPod is, back then, for you to carry some songs in your pocket, at most you could carry maybe 200 songs in your pocket. And that's fairly new technology as well. Back then you had CD players that could play not only regular CDs, but they could play what they called MP3 CDs, which is you drop the MP3 file onto the CD, and then you can fill up whatever 700 megabytes of space on one CD storage allowed you to do. So back then, MP3 CDs was like, whoa, that's so cool. I can drop the file. I don't have to burn the actual song onto the CD. Before that, it was actual CDs, which you could have maybe 14 tracks or up to 72 minutes of songs. That was the limitation. Before that, it was probably cassette tapes. You had tape A, face A, face B, and that even recording that was even more hard. You had to listen to the radio, press the play and record button at the same time. But yeah, so for Apple to come out and say you can have 1,000 songs in your pocket was mind-blowing. And because they took that approach, knowing their audience, that was the way they were able to make their sale. So just kind of going back to my thought where, like for my students, learning to kind of tap into what they're interested in and what makes sense for them in order to teach them something, more complex, more diverse. I can't think of any examples that I've done recently. We're talking about the digestive system and how the digestive system, the main part of it is your stomach, right? And the Vietnamese word for stomach is bao tử, but the first word is bao, which is the stomach is like, and I asked him what the stomach is like a bao. What is a bao in English? The stomach is like a bag. I said, what do you put in the bag? And they say, we put our books and we put our pencil cases and we put our folders and anything else we need for school, we put into our bags. I said, that's right. So your stomach has a bag, but what do you put books and stuff into that? And they're like, no, you never put books. It's like, well, what do you put in that book? Oh, you put food. Oh, okay, yeah, you do put food. That's right. But does the food inside of your stomach look like what it used to look like when it first went into your mouth? And there's like, no, it looks very, very different. It looks very, very different. I said, the bag that you're wearing on your back and the bag that's in your body is two different things, in the sense that when you put a book into your bag and you pull the book back out, it looks exactly the same. But when you put a piece of pizza into your mouth, and if you try to take that piece of pizza out of your stomach back out, it'll look totally different. And I can kind of see like their minds turning a little bit, the gears moving a little bit, and they kind of got the point about like how digestion works. And then we could talk about, okay, so what's in our bag, in our bodies. We got acids and stuff, and it helps to break down helps to break down the food that you put into this bag. So anyway, just kind of like thinking of things like that to connect with the audience, because if I just went straight into digestive enzymes and lining of your stomach and like acid and like it would go way over their heads. But learning to adjust teaching to a way that's conducive for your audience. Yeah. So anyway, just thinking about that, heard that on the podcast and kind of chewed that around a little bit, and I thought I'd like to share it with you. So anyway, thanks a lot for checking in this morning. It's going to be a good day. It's a Sunday. We've got service, then we've got family worship, and then I think we're going over to a friend's house later on this evening as well. Yeah, we'll see. All right, love you guys. Take care, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Keep it up.